Graciela. I am a PSL member here in New York, and I'm also a teacher in the Bronx. Today, I'm going to discuss the status of the Bronx during this pandemic. So this past weekend, I got tested for COVID antibodies, and my results came back positive. I immediately thought back to that week in March that I was really sick. It just happened to be that week, right after de Blasio officially closed schools. And I immediately started thinking about my students and my family. How many of them brought the virus home unknowingly because New York City officials refused to close schools early? And the reality is that my students and their families and school staff were an afterthought to the officials. And in fact, my students, their families, and the rest of the Bronx continue to be an afterthought for this government. Today, the Bronx has over 4,000 cases of coronavirus infection, and it leads the city in COVID-related deaths and hospitalizations. The Bronx, a community that is poor, working class, and home to many essential workers, is now the epicenter of the epicenter. Experts cite the high obesity rates, the high asthma rates as the reason why COVID is killing us. But they couldn't be more wrong. We're not dying because we're obese, because we have asthma, or because we don't take care of ourselves. We're dying because of capitalism. The city was unprepared when the pandemic hit, and the city continues to be unprepared. The Bronx has 1.4 million residents, and New York Health and Hospitals has only 5 established testing centers in the Bronx. That's 280,000 residents per testing center. That is ridiculous. Only 60,000 tests have been administered in the Bronx, and more than 50% of those tests have come back positive. Yet, the Bronx continues to receive less tests than any other borough. But what do we expect? At the height of the pandemic, when the emergency rooms of Montefiore, Lincoln, and Jacoby, which are all Bronx hospitals, were over capacity and oversaturated, Yankee Stadium and the Kingsbridge Armory, 2 places that could house thousands of people, sat there empty. The inability of this government to effectively handle this pandemic is what is killing the people of the Bronx. It is a system, this particular system, that is murdering us. Many Bronx residents, especially the families I work with, are not just dealing with sickness and death. They're also dealing with economic hardship. In the last 2 months, the unemployment rate of New York City has tripled. And I am sure that the unemployment rate in the Bronx has also tripled, and it is probably higher than that of the cities. And I don't need official data to tell me about the unemployment rate. I witness it every day with my students. Just before this call, I was helping one of my students and their families navigate getting food delivered to their home. And the reality is that food insecurity is a real thing in the Bronx. And it was a real thing before the pandemic. And this pandemic has only made it worse. And the rise of food, the cost of food has risen. And so has unemployment rates. And so has the rent. And the food pantries are at capacities with what they can provide for families. Sorry. And when we think about the services that the government is giving to people, it is simply not enough. So the meal delivery service that I was helping my families navigate through only provides enough food for 2 family members. So if you have a family of 5, you just won't have enough food. And the reality is that everything that the government is doing is just not enough. It's just like they give you the minimum. And we know that this government can do more. We saw how they gave trillions of dollars to Wall Street and corporations. So why are they not giving trillions of dollars to the people? We are the collateral damage. We are the ones dying in this pandemic. And we need to demand that the government do more for us. And we need to demand that through actions like cancel the rent. And we need to demand these things while we fight for a socialist revolution, because we know that the way capitalism is going and has been going, it's never going to be for us. Thank you for listening. And this May 30th, join our Cancel the Rent actions.